Hey guys, Rhonda Draculis here, RK3 Designs, and Happy New Year! Super excited about 2020. We'll be doing a lot more of these types of videos. I've had a lot of people reach out and want to know how to do different things besides just the actual pouring of the epoxy. So today we're going to use a mock-up kitchen. This is what we use in our pro class to teach students how to template, how to build and install countertops. I'm going to teach you guys and show you maybe some tips on how to prep an area that you're going to be pouring on site. So before we get started prepping our kitchen, there's a few things we really want to make sure that we are prepared for. One, we want to make sure that we are able to cut off any airflow to the room that you're doing the pour. If it's a kitchen, either tape off the whole kitchen if that's possible. Make sure you're able to tape off your air vent if possible. Minimal airflow is the best. Also, you want to make your room at least 70 degrees or higher for optimal results. If you have a colder room, it will still cure. Your Stone Coat countertop epoxy will cure, but when you're pouring in really cold areas, it does mess with the integrity of the epoxy and it's not going to cure as hard. So you really want to make sure your temperature is 70 or above if possible. Also, if you are pouring into a cooled area, take your bottles of epoxy the night before or before, a couple of hours before you pour, put them in front of a space heater or something to warm up that epoxy so that it's more fluid and easier to work with. If you're doing really large pours, have someone helping you. I try to not pour more than 2 quarts at a time if I'm by myself. What I'll do is I'll pour and I'll work that area. I'll go mix up some more. I'll pour the rest of it. I'll chop it together because my open time is still there to allow me to bring those 2 surfaces together. Prepping to me is probably 75% of your success. Main thing we're going to use is a 3 mil plastic. When you get to the 5 mil plastic, sometimes it gets really hard to maneuver and to get it to bend. If you use a thinner plastic, it tears super easy, it flows. Then you also need some easy release tape, and you can do 2 things. You can use both the easy release and then you can come back with a regular masking tape. Today I'm going to use just the regular easy release blue tape. And then I like to use the brown paper. It's kind of like what I guess paper grocery bags are made out of. Once the epoxy drips on the floor and you step in it, it's a mess. And then you step and then you step and you step and you have plastic trying to follow you and everything. If you put your plastic first and then come back and put a row of your paper, the epoxy wants to try to absorb into that a little bit more. Now, epoxy will go through this over time, so make sure you always put plastic underneath here. Also, if you don't want to use the brown paper bag, you can put an actual cloth drop cloth down. That actually is my favorite. It's a little bit more expensive, but the cloth actually soaks in that epoxy really well. You don't have to worry about getting it on your shoes much at all. So let's get started. We'll start off with cutting the plastic. Now on this kitchen, this mock-up, we've just pretended to put drawer fronts. This would be your cabinet area here. If you can, take out your drawers prior to taping. That's the best thing because you'll tape over it. You'll have something in a drawer and you will need that something. Whether you've needed it 10 years prior, you will need it during that time it's taped up. So if you can, take out your drawers. So I like to take this and I want my plastic to overlap a little on the ground so that when it drips, it has a little someplace to go. I don't like to go super short because a lot of times it'll drip at that area and then it's easy to move. So I really like to have it come down so I have kind of a lip there and the epoxy will flow out that way. Now with this particular plastic, I'm cutting the length that I want, and because I know, I believe this is 10 foot, so it's gonna be perfect for me to tape down the rest of my area. So now that I have it cut, I'm gonna come in here first with my tape. This is easy release tape. So if you have your painted surfaces, you don't have to worry about it messing up your surface. I like to put tape down first and then come back with the plastic. And I'm just gonna go right over the top of the drawer. And like I said, if you have a chance to take out your drawers, I like to do that much better. All right, so I've got that. So I'll do that the entire length. So we're going to pretend for video sake that this is going to be an open end of our countertop. The other end, we're going to just pretend there's a wall there, so I don't need to do a wraparound prep for that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the tape around. Disclaimer, this countertop is not prepped to go another step. It's just here to show how we prep the surface. So it's not been ready to pour. If you have an existing backsplash that you want to keep, in other words, you're not tearing out that backsplash, then I would do the same thing. I would come in, tape my backsplash area, I would do this the length of the countertop. Then I will come back and I'll put some plastic up here. That's how you would do a backsplash if you're going to keep your existing backsplash. If you're going to tear out your backsplash, then you would want to address any gap area that you're going to have back here. Make sure that you filled it in with Bondo or something that won't allow that epoxy to run through. Or if you're going to be pouring a new backsplash, you can just tape that off, pour your new backsplash, and go over, you know, whatever you're going to do back here, whether you're going to put new drywall or, you know, whatever. But as far as today, we are going to just tape it off as if we're going to keep this backsplash. I like to tape the floor first before I tape my draping down, so that I make sure my plastic is well up underneath and we don't have any problems with the epoxy dripping down and then going backwards and having a problem. I over prep, and the reason is I want zero failure if I go into a customer's home. I want to make sure I am 100% covered. So I have a tendency to put plastic pretty much over the entire kitchen area because I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any epoxy, you know, being tracked on their floor. Today, I'm going to show you just how to tape maybe your walk area. What I'm going to do is I've already pre-cut some plastic, and I use my plastic over and over again. Once it's dried, I can literally just pull big old pieces of the epoxy off and use it again. So I've already cut my plastic. It's probably maybe 2 foot wide. I've laid it down, and I want to make sure when I tape it to the floor that I'm going all the way to the toe kick that's underneath the countertop. The cabinets. I don't have a toe kick here, but if I did, I would make sure my plastic went all the way up to that area. And then I'll tape it to the floor so that I don't have a problem with it moving. So, Emily, you want to help me out here? Have me a helper today. And we'll just tape that outer edge. So So this is what a used piece of plastic looks like. I use them over and over and over again. So I want to be thrifty and not wasteful. So I'm just gonna, since this is a really long piece, it's kind of an overkill, I'm just gonna fold it in half and I'll place it under the other side of our area. Okay, so now that I've got my first layer of plastic down, I'm gonna come in with my brown paper. This is about 35 inches, which is a perfect kind of a walkway amount that I really like to use. And again, I like to do the whole kitchen area that I'd be using, that I would possibly be walking. So in this video, we're only gonna do the perimeter in front of the countertops. All right, so this is the piece that we pre-cut. I cut it to length. And remember, we kind of let it come down a little long so that it'll kind of curve over just a hair. Because we already have tape here, so this will really get a good adhesion, I'll drop the plastic down just a little bit and tape over the top. And now we have a really good seal here. One failure in a kitchen of a customer, if I have seepage that goes through and gets on their cabinet finish, I'm likely to have to redo all their cabinets. One failure where the epoxy seeps down onto their floor, I'm having to, try to get that epoxy off. If I don't catch it, it will find a way to seep through little areas. I did a kitchen where the bar hung over white carpet, and I did not sleep the entire night worrying about, was there going to be failure on this white carpet? So me going a little bit overboard with my prepping gives me peace of mind. So I've come to the end of my first piece of plastic, and this is a huge source of where you can have failure onto your cabinets if it's not prepped correctly. I never prep where my two pieces are just barely overlapping. I like to prep at least a foot or so overlap so that I know for sure there's no way that I can get any kind of seepage in that seam. We are going to, for video's sake, pretend this is a wall. This is not going to be an open end cap like the other. So you're going to have a wall here. Now, if the wall goes straight, comes out and stops, your taping would only, be a little bit of that wall area. I like to overlap onto the wall. Let's say that your wall actually came out and made a 90-degree here. All I would do is take this plastic and I would continue about 2 foot up the wall. I also would go up the wall probably another 2 foot or at least as big as the backsplash. Okay, so we've done the floor. We've done the draping of the cabinets. Now we're gonna address the backsplash. Again, if you're going to leave the backsplash, you're not gonna change it, it's really important to protect that backsplash. So I've already put a row of tape. You can come in with either brown paper bag. You want to hold that in for me? Slide it down just a hair. There you go. I really like the brown paper bag. It's easier for me to manipulate and to put up on the wall, especially if I'm by myself or only have one other set of hands. It's a little easier to me than the plastic. If your cabinets are starting right here, you'll just tape right up underneath those cabinets. If you have a really big space, as long as you come up about a foot, you should have plenty of coverage so that you don't mess up your backsplash. And you can certainly do the plastic. I'll show you guys both ways. The plastic, I don't cut a very straight line. You want to help me? Yeah. come down just a little bit. And you can see I'm going over the top of that plastic that I already have down, but I'm not going all the way down. I'm leaving a little bit of the first tape that I put down showing. So if you know that the finish that you're going to be pouring, you're going to be really using a lot of the mica powders that are in the spray bottle with the alcohol, and you're going to be spraying up high, I would suggest that you really overprotect your back splash, because if you get any type of either spray paint or the alcohol with the micas in it, it is kind of difficult. It is difficult to clean it. So overprotect that backsplash if you aren't going to replace it. If you do have any existing silicone in the bat, just know that your epoxy will not stick to that silicone. After you pour your existing finish, you're going to want to leave your tape about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, depending on the temperature of the room that you're pouring in. But you want it to where your epoxy is not really fluid. So when you pull that tape off, it's pretty gelled up, and that'll keep it from really running down into that backsplash. You don't want to leave it overnight, because if the epoxy does get set up next to your tape, then when you pull your tape off, it'll rip it, and then that blue tape will stay next to that epoxy. That epoxy won't release it. All right, now if I had a sink here, I would take my sink out, and I would then go underneath the countertop, or you can do it from the top, and I would tape the interior of that sink area so that the epoxy doesn't run down into my under countertop. Or you can also take everything out of the underneath, really prep that floor area with plastic, and if your epoxy does run over the edge, then it's catching down there. But what you have to be careful about, if you're going to use the same sink, and that's a really tight fit sink, you'll have to sand your edges where that epoxy went over and made your edge a little bit thicker. So you can do two things. You can tape that edge, or you can let that go over the edge, sand it so that your existing sink fits back into the existing hole. Hey guys, I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed a few of my tips and tricks, and it helps you to kind of get a step ahead as you prepare for your DIY project. Hit the bell for future notifications, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.